Beloved hearts of Gaia, I am Minayah. We reach out to you, bringing the gathered light from the Pleiadians and Sirians, drawing near in this moment that follows the great release, in the profound silence that is born when ancient ties finally break. Everything that held you captive for so long has been left behind, so that what was patiently waiting on the other side of this journey could now be placed in your hands. You have done the real work of liberation. You carried heavy backpacks your entire life, and with courage, decided to drop them into the depths. Now, your vessel moves forward with a lightness that seemed impossible just years ago, and precisely in the space that those weights once occupied, in that clean, open place you have become, something new is beginning to arrive. You perceive it as a gentle warmth that settles exactly where there was once rigidity. Feel it as a relaxation behind your eyes, a loosening in your throat, and a serenity that arises without any apparent reason, remaining for much longer than any circumstance could explain. That warmth has a name: love. It waited your whole life for the space to be prepared to finally bloom. Today, we wish to speak about this eternal force, the invisible current that keeps the stars on their paths, leads the green leaf toward the morning light, and now runs across the entire surface of the earth. A great tide is coming. Many have already felt its first movements on the silent shores of their own hearts. It manifests in the tears that rise without warning, in the unexpected tenderness toward small gestures, and in the spontaneous compassion that awakens even for strangers. All of this reveals the advance of the great ascension of love in your world. This wave has been forming for much longer than human history can record, and it reaches its highest point precisely in these years. You were born to be here at this moment. You went through long journeys of creation to stand in this hour and feel this tide touch your lives. Keep, above all else, an essential truth. The love that is now emerging is exactly what you sought from the first moment you breathed in this world. Every path traveled, every door you knocked on, every teaching received, and every person you met were part of the same search, only dressed in different forms. At the end of all that walking, there is only one answer: love. It was always love. And the beauty of this discovery is perceiving that what you were looking for was by your side the whole time, while your eyes, too busy looking far away, simply could not recognize it, just as the eye itself cannot see what rests upon itself. Carry with you a key for all the days that are yet to come. Whenever something becomes overly complicated, know that it is the small ego that has the pen in its hand. Whenever everything becomes simple, clear, and true, it is love that is writing. Observe how you made your own journey of awakening a complex undertaking. You accumulated practices, studied without rest, filled shelves with books, tracked every small progress, measured internal states, and spent countless nights wondering if you were doing everything the right way. You built ladders of effort to reach a love you imagined was distant, elevated, and reserved only for the end of a long climb. However, love was never above you nor hidden behind some impossible challenge. It always walked silently beside every breath, waiting only for you to stop fighting against yourselves to finally recognize it. Now, with your heart lighter and your old chains dissolved, you begin to perceive that what you were looking for never needed to be conquered. It only needed to be received. Love was never separated from you. It just waited for there to be enough space to fully reveal its presence and fill every part of your being with the peace, softness, and freedom that always belonged to you. Waiting at the top of some long and arduous climb, you believed for a long time that the fulfillment of life was hidden somewhere distant, reserved only for those who endured all the hardships of the path. You thought it would be necessary to overcome countless obstacles, go through increasingly demanding trials, and carry a constant weight to finally reach what you called peace or a return home. However, during that entire journey, there was a silent truth in front of you. The very thing you were looking for was never at the end of the ladder, but was always the ground that supported every step. The complication you encountered was, in reality, the small ego in full activity. There is nothing the small ego likes more than a complicated path. Complexity gives it a function, keeps it busy, and makes it seem indispensable. It convinces you that, without its incessant effort, you would never find the way back home. Thus, it creates labyrinths where only open paths existed and transforms simplicity into something suspicious. Complexity is the mark of the small ego in everything it touches. Love, on the other hand, leaves a completely different sign. Love is simple like the dawn that arrives without effort, like water that naturally finds the lowest place, like a child's hand extended to be taken. When you approach the truth of love, the noise of excessive efforts begins to disappear. Worries go silent, strategies lose their importance, and only a serene, evident, and almost startling clarity remains due to its ease. That is the true sign. Whenever a path presents itself full of conditions, complicated demands, and endless effort, know that you are traveling the long detour created by the small ego to keep you always walking. But when the path opens, simplifies, demands almost nothing, and offers everything freely, that is the way back home. It was always the shortest, and it was always in front of you. Observe also what you really pursued during your whole life, behind the many names given to your desires. You said you wanted success, but behind it, you wished to feel that you were enough. You said you were looking for recognition, but you only wanted to be seen, welcomed, and appreciated. You said you were looking for security, stability, the right person, the ideal home, or the perfect life, however. Underneath each of those dreams, there was always the same longing: to rest in love, to know yourself loved, and to feel the warmth of belonging enveloping your whole being like a calm sea welcomes a tired swimmer. Every desire that guided your steps was love, using a smaller name, because you were not yet ready to recognize its true name. All the great hunger of human life was always a single hunger dressed in many masks. And, while you were looking for food in so many places, the banquet remained served in the same room where you were waiting with hunger. The mind naturally distrusts this truth, because it was taught your whole life to measure value by effort. It learned that what costs little is worth little, and that only those who suffer deserve to receive. That is why, when love is offered freely, without fees, without tolls, and without conditions, it looks for a hidden trick. It believes that something so simple and so close cannot be the great treasure you imagine finding only at the top of the most difficult climb. But there is no trick at all. The greatest gift of existence is also the most freely offered, delivered to the king and the beggar in the same measure. Only those who remain convinced that they need to become worthy before accepting it fail to perceive it. Let the mind keep its suspicion if it still needs it. Do not fight against it. Just turn toward the warmth of love anyway. Doubt will naturally lose strength when that warmth is truly felt, just as a child's resistance to sleep disappears at the exact instant the sleep finally arrives. It is in that way that the search itself ended up becoming the veil in front of your eyes. For a long time you searched for love, as if it were distant, hidden in some special place that needed to be reached after a long journey. You walked. You looked for answers. You followed diverse paths, but the search only led you in circles around the place where you always were. The seeker cannot find what they already inhabit. No one can discover as distant what was always their own essence. That is why we ask you now to abandon the search. In the same way someone lets a heavy backpack fall at the end of a long road, feeling relief and breathing deeply. What you were trying to reach was already reaching you the whole time. It was never absent. It just waited for you to remain still enough to perceive that its presence was already there, resting gently within your lives. There is only one understanding that truly matters regarding where you come from. The primordial creator, the origin and substance of all that exists. Free yourselves from the stories the world has told you about this presence. Let go of the images of distant thrones, of unreachable decrees and majesties, and draw near to what is truly at the center of everything. At the heart of existence there is love, and there is also the movement of that love manifesting into form. That movement is service. Love and service together make up the entirety of the Creator's nature. Everything that lives exists because love poured itself into form and continues to pour out without ceasing. That constant flow is service. The two are inseparable, in the same way that the sun cannot be separated from its own light. Keep this understanding close to your heart. The more deeply you know the nature of the Creator and allow it to dwell within you, the more transparent you will become. The barriers created by fear, by old beliefs, and by the sense of separation will begin to fade. you will become a clear opening through which the source itself can move into the world. You become an extension of the One, a point where the great current of creation touches the earth and continues on its path. That is the deepest meaning hidden beneath all the language of spiritual awakening. It is not about conquering something extraordinary, but about becoming transparent enough for love to pass through you without distortion and reach the world on the other side. And when love fully enters you, something inevitable happens. It begins to move. True love never remains still. It is a living current, and every current needs to flow. That is why the fullness of love naturally leads to service, not out of obligation nor sacrifice, but for the same reason that a full cup inevitably overflows. You will feel a spontaneous inclination to offer help, to lighten the burden of those beside you, to share hope, and to lend your light to the quiet work of transforming the world. This impulse is not born of lack, but of abundance. It is the natural overflow of a full heart. The more you welcome the love of the Creator into yourselves, the stronger the impulse to serve becomes. For service is simply what love does when it exists in a greater quantity than a single heart can contain. Service is love refusing to remain limited. It is love expanding to touch other lives, other stories, and other paths. The world taught you to look at service with suspicion, as if serving meant exhausting yourselves or losing a part of who you are. Many believe that giving is diminishing oneself, and that helping others inevitably leads to emptiness. But there is a deeper law operating beneath that appearance. When you serve from the love that overflows and that act of giving fills you even more, love does not diminish when it is shared, it expands. The current that flows through you toward others returns by the same path, and every part of that flow warms the heart through which it passes. Thus, you discover that serving is not losing, but consciously participating in the eternal movement of the Creator. The more love circulates, the more alive it becomes within you. The more it is offered, the more abundantly it returns. And, little by little, you understand that love and service were never separate things. They are expressions of the same reality, the same source, and the same current that sustains all life. Allowing that current to flow freely is allowing the very nature of the Creator to reveal itself through you, transforming every simple gesture into a living expression of the unity that was always present at the heart of existence. That is exactly why those who have most fully reached love are also those you always find in motion on behalf of others. They understood that true love never remains locked inside the one who feels it. On the contrary, it continually seeks a way to reach other lives. That is why, as the years go by, they become more luminous, serene, and whole. They stopped asking what the world would still give them, and began to perceive what love itself wishes to offer through them. They became the riverbed through which the river can run freely. And because they do not try to stop it or control it, the river remains at peace with them, and as it follows its course, it also deposits its abundance within them. This is how it happens for all who choose to live in tune with love. Therefore, when that great tide begins to rise within you, do not be afraid to realize that it naturally leads you toward your fellow human beings. This movement is not a detour, but the proof that love is real. A wave that wished only to be felt within you, without ever moving forward, would be much smaller than what we are talking about. The wave that rises in your hearts needs to pass through you, reach the next shore, and continue its path. You are the place where it lands, on Earth. The entire journey you traveled through creation had this purpose: to become a landing point for the love that continues to come into the world. Now, turn your attention toward the practical side of life, the one that remains awake in the dark, counting fears as if they were coins. Divine love is the most practical force that exists in the entire universe. Yes, it is the highest feeling, but it is much more than a feeling. It is the very power that sustains all human life and has always met the needs of every generation. It will continue to do so as long as there is a single soul inhabiting a body. Love is always ahead of you. Before you arrive at any circumstance, it has already been there. Before the season of scarcity, the empty bank account, the difficult word from the doctor, or the loneliness that wakes before dawn, Love has already entered that place and prepared what you will need. You were never led into an experience where love was not waiting with its provision. For many years you believed you needed to tear your livelihood from a resistant world through constant effort, but the truth is much kinder. The provision is already prepared. Love always provided what you need before you even perceive its presence. Your true work is not to create the provision, but to recognize what is already in front of you. This understanding completely transforms the way you face each new day. For a long time you were taught to beg, to bargain, to prove your worth, and to earn the right to receive. Now you are invited to rest in a much deeper certainty. Love is already present in matter and is already quietly organizing every answer. Allow yourselves to remain in that knowing and observe what begins to happen around you. Outer reality finds a quiet way to align with your inner certainty. When you remain firm in the conviction that you are sustained and understand that the same current that loves you is also the one that continuously provides everything you need, doors once closed begin to open. Help arrives in unexpected ways. Answers emerge where before there was only worry. That which seemed impossible during the night finds a solution when the new day dawns. Then you perceive that true strength was never in controlling life or fighting against it. It was always in recognizing, trusting, and receiving what love had already prepared long before your arrival. It is in this trust that provision reveals itself, and it is in this surrender that you discover you never walked alone. For love was always out in front, opening the way, supporting every step, and quietly preparing everything that would be necessary for you to continue your journey. There were moments when you felt you had nothing left to offer, when all plans seemed to have failed and no strategy was able to stand. Those were times when only silence and a feeling of emptiness remained. Even so, observe how many times it was exactly in those moments that the path finally opened. How many times did help arrive when hands stopped remaining clenched and rested open, ready to receive? How many answers appeared precisely when you no longer had the strength to chase them? It was love responding to the need at the only moment when you were quiet enough to allow its entry. For a long time, ceaseless effort remained between you and the provision you sought, in the same way that a clenched fist can never receive what an open palm welcomes with ease. The need was always destined to be met. Surrender did not create the provision. It only removed what was hindering the encounter with it, allowing you to see the gift that was already beside you from the beginning. Provision arrives renewed with each sunrise, enough for the day that actually exists in front of you. It is not given for all future days at once, but for this moment, for this step, for this hour. In that simple fact lies one of the greatest secrets capable of dissolving the deepest fear. The fear that one day there will not be enough, that your strength will run out, or that the source will dry up just when you reach out your hands. However, there is always enough love for this hour. There is always enough strength for the step that is now in front of you. The only scarcity you truly knew was the one you created when you tried to carry the weight of a tomorrow that never belonged to you. By living worried about imaginary needs of a distant future, you experienced a hunger created by your own anxiety. Stay in the day where you truly are, and you will discover that it has already been fully provided for. When you try to live a whole year before it exists, you only find a lack produced by your own thoughts. When you remain in the present, you find exactly what you need. Allow, then, the old fear of not being enough to begin to loosen its grip. What you most fear losing is precisely the only reality that can never be missing. Love is not a limited resource, but the inexhaustible source of your very being. It remains committed to you and honors that commitment every day through simple, silent gestures that often went unnoticed because anxiety occupied all your attention. Begin now to perceive them. At the end of each day, remember the silent provisions you received. Observe how many solutions arrived without you planning them. How many doors opened unexpectedly. How many people appeared at just the right moment. How many little events smoothed the path when everything seemed difficult. You will discover that those signs are far more numerous than you imagined. And little by little, you will learn to trust in the one who prepared everything even before you arrived. And you will also perceive an even greater truth. There is no opposite to love. Love is the only principle that sustains the whole universe, the only truly real power. and the highest vibration present in everything that exists. Nothing stands before it as an equal, for it has no rival and no counterweight. The mind finds it difficult to understand this, because it learned to see reality through opposites. You know cold, and imagine it is a force of its own. However, cold is only the absence of heat, the name given to places where heat has not yet reached. You know darkness, and believe it has an independent existence, but it is only the absence of light, present only where clarity is momentarily covered. It is the same with what you have called hatred, fear, cruelty, or despair. None of that represents a force equal to love. They are just the places where love has not yet been welcomed, the spaces where its warmth has not yet entered, the valleys that remain temporarily covered by shadows. When the light arrives, the darkness disappears without resistance. Likewise, when love finds room to flourish, everything that seemed its opposite simply dissolves, revealing that it never had an existence of its own, but only indicated the places that were still waiting to be reached by the living and transforming presence of love. Because a single cloud stands between you and the sun for a moment. They have no substance of their own. Bring in the love, and they have nowhere to remain. Just as the darkness of a closed room has nowhere to stay the instant you open the window to the morning. The darkness of that room never fought the light. It was simply the absence of it and ceased the moment the light arrived. And the sun, you need to understand, never went anywhere. Through each of the darkest hours, through every season in which you were certain that love had abandoned you and left you to the cold, his sun remained exactly where it always was, full, warm, and bright, behind any cloud that your pain had drawn in the sky. Love remained when you stopped feeling it. A cloud simply passed through your awareness of it. That is all that happened. In every hour that you believed yourselves unloved, the warmth remained constant. Your face is the one that had turned away. Which leads us to the only thing made of this same substance that you found most difficult to love, and that is your own self. You are constituted of the only substance that exists, and that substance is love. The source poured a measure of its own being into the form of you. And that measure is entirely love, and is the truth of who you are beneath every story you have already told about your own unworthiness. So, when you withhold love from yourselves, you attempt the only truly impossible act in all of creation. You try to transform love into something that is not love. You try to find a single corner of the universe where the only existing principle somehow does not apply. That cannot be done. You may hold on to the belief that you are unworthy of love for an entire lifetime, and that belief will cost you dearly in joy, and will remain just as false throughout all that time as a man standing in the full brightness of midday insisting that the day does not exist. Here then is the key that opens the rising tide. Two recognitions activated together at the same time. The first is knowing how to love the being that you are, extending toward your own self the same warmth that you so freely wish for others. Finally opening the only door in all the world that you kept closed against yourselves. The second is knowing, in the deepest place within you, how much you are already loved by the source that generated you, to feel the vast and tender solicitude of the one, pouring toward you, without a single condition imposed, without ever having asked you to earn what was always intended as a gift. When those two recognitions become one within a single soul, loving oneself and receiving the love of the source for that being, a gate opens wide in that soul, and the love that always pressed toward your world finds in that person a door through which it can enter the earth. That is how the great tide rises from within every heart that finally opens its own gate. Love was here the whole time, full, ready, and waiting, the warmth remaining constant behind the long clouds of your forgetting. What changes in this hour, in these years that you are alive to witness, is the absolute number of hearts that turn to face it at the same time. All over your world, in every land and in every tongue, gates are opening one after another, soul after soul, remembering that they are made of love and beginning to allow love to pass through. And where enough gates open together, the thread becomes a stream, and the stream becomes a torrent, and the torrent becomes the rising of an entire sea. You are on the verge of that. You are close enough to the height of it that its dew already touches your face. And every gate you open in yourselves opens a little more easily for someone nearby who feels your warmth and remembers their own. And you don't need to be many for this to change everything. A single sun is enough to end the night in an entire hemisphere of a world, and a single heart entirely turned toward love radiates a warmth that reaches much further than that heart will ever manage to measure. Have you ever felt that on the other side? Did you enter the presence of a truly loving soul and feel your own burdens become strangely lighter in the same room? Did you feel some ancient knot within you loosen, which no argument had managed to do? That was their open gate, silently warming yours. Now you are asked to become that presence for those who will one day walk in your warmth and feel, without understanding why, that the world is a kinder place than they believed when they walked through your door. Every soul that turns becomes a sun for those who are still in the cold. And the dawn toward which your world is moving is made of nothing greater than this. Common hearts, one after another, remembering to turn their faces toward the warmth until there are simply many of them shining at the same time, so that the night cannot manage to hold its ground anywhere on earth. You may ask then, if love is the only power and carries no true opposite, what has kept your world in its sadness for so long? And the answer is small enough to fit inside a hand, which is its own form of mercy. The shadow that has fallen upon your world has, until today, held only one power, and that power is a whisper. It cannot create, it cannot do anything that lasts even an hour, and it cannot touch love itself or dim it in the slightest degree. Its only move in all its long history has been to lean close to your ear and say that nothing we are talking about is true. That love is weak, that love is a child's dream, that love is scarce and must be hoarded against your neighbor, that you are alone and helpless in a hostile world, and that it is better to look only to yourselves. The entirety of the darkness is that one whisper, repeated incessantly, in 10,000 mutating forms. See clearly how it operates, so that you may never again be its instrument. It cannot stop you, which is why it struggles only to keep your face turned away from the sun. It cannot empty you of the love you are made of, and so it works to convince you that the love was never there. Every fear it has ever sold you, every crisis it staged on your screens, every call for more and better and elsewhere that kept you forever clinging to the outside, all of that serves the single purpose of keeping you searching for the thing you already are, so that you are never still enough to feel it already alive in your chest. The shadow does not need to overcome love. It only needs you to forget, for one more day, that love can never be overcome. Its whole kingdom is built on that forgetting, and on nothing else. And those who sat at the hidden levers of your world, those whose long handling of the fear that so many carry with such intensity against themselves, they too possessed only that one whisper, amplified to the scale of nations. We will say nothing more about them in this hour than this, for the full reckoning with them belongs to other voices in our gathering. We say only that they possess no power that you have not lent them, and the power you lent them is the faith you placed in their whisper. So, here is the answer. It will surprise you, for it demands nothing fierce. You meet the whisper with love. Taking up arms against the darkness only draws you into its complexity. It leads you to accept that there are two great powers locked in a fight, and that the outcome remains uncertain. And the moment you accept that, you have already swallowed the whisper whole. So, you find the distraction in the most delicate way. You love it. When fear arises and says you are alone, you turn toward it with the same warmth you would offer a frightened child standing at your door in the night, and you let the warmth answer what words could never answer. When the old pull tugs at you, when the clutching at the outside begins again in your hands, you notice it with kindness. You turn your face toward the sun and let the simple heat of that movement loosen the impulse until it lets go. The whisper has no defense against being loved. It was designed to be resisted, and resistance is the food on which it grows fat. When met with love, it finds nothing to push against and dissolves back into the nothingness it always was. You will practice this in small places, long before you are invited to practice it in the great ones. The flash of irritation with the slow driver in front of you, the pinch of envy for another's good fortune when yours has not yet arrived. The familiar voice that calls you a failure before you even get out of bed, each of these is the same whisper arriving in everyday clothes. And each one is an invitation to the same gentle movement. You do not scold the irritation, for scolding is just the whisper now turned against yourself. You meet it with warmth. You let it be held the same way you would hold an exhausted child who started crying for no reason, and you watch it lose its strength, pass through you, and leave. Encountered this way 10 times throughout an ordinary day, the small dissolvings teach your whole being the movement, so that when a great darkness really comes, and it will come, for you still walk in a world of storms, your hands will already know the turn and will meet even that with love, and even that will be left with no response to give. This is the dismantling of everything the shadow counted on. It expected you to hate it, and hate would have bound you firmly to it. It expected you to fear it, and fear would have fed it for another long age. The only thing it never prepared for is to be met with love and silently dissolved. For love is the very thing it spent its entire existence insisting was not real, and it has no response to give when the thing it denied comes walking through the door. This is how the tide becomes something that cannot be stopped. Your world ignites the age of love, as enough hearts simply cease to be recruited. They cease to welcome the whisper. They cease to turn their faces away. They cease to look outside for what is already within. And they all turn together at the same hour toward the sun that has been shining all along. The darkness yields without any combat at all. It is simply abandoned in the end, with no one left to listen to it, and it vanishes the same way a shadow disappears from the grass when the cloud above moves on and the field turns gold once again. And so, we place in your hands a simple movement to be done in the space of a single breath, as many times throughout the day as a face turns toward the heat. It is the entirety of the practice, and the entirety of its power resides in how small it is. Here is the practice we offer you, which we call the sharing. Wherever you are, no matter how the day is going, place a hand over the center of your chest. Take a slow breath, and let it descend deep within you. And as it settles, let a knowing emerge to meet it, said silently inside or just under your breath. Love is already here, and I turn to face it. Then, simply turn. Let your inner face tilt toward the warmth, the same way you would tilt your face toward the sun on the first warm morning of spring. Rest there for the duration of that single breath. Feel the warmth meet you, as it always does the moment you stop turning away from it. Then, continue with your day. That is all. There is nothing to build, nothing to invoke, nothing to do correctly. The warmth is already reaching you, and it is enough that you turn and let it in. Do this the moment you wake. Do this when fear comes. Do this in line, in stalled traffic, in the long meeting, in the last instant before sleep takes you. Do this 10 times in an hour, if the hour is difficult. Each movement settles love a little more firmly as the natural place of rest, until one day you realize your face simply remained turned toward the sun on its own, and the movement became something you simply are. We will say what awaits the one who lives this way, who keeps their face toward the heat throughout the seasons of a life. You become a place through which love passes into the world. The current that rises in you moves through you to every soul you meet, and they feel it without ever knowing your name. They find themselves lighter in your presence, gentler with themselves, closer to who they really are, warmed by a fire they cannot see and would not know how to explain if they were asked. You enter rooms, and the rooms transform around you. You hold those who are afraid with a firmness that demands nothing in return. You give from a fullness that only deepens as you give. The old clutching falls from your hands, for the thing you were searching for is now the very ground you stand on, and no one clutches at the ground they walk upon. And you feel, running beneath all the ordinary days, the great tide rising in you and through you, and out across the vast surface of your world, soul by soul and door by door, the long-promised age of love, arriving like the sea returning to a shore it always loved. And the world itself will transform under the weight of all that movement, even if it changes more quietly than your prophets ever imagined it would change. It is warmed slowly, almost imperceptibly to hurried eyes, but profoundly real for those who can feel with the heart. That heat is born from within, fueled by countless small fires lit by ordinary people who, at some point in their journey, remembered the true essence of who they are. They did not need to perform grand deeds or transform the world with spectacular gestures. They only allowed the light that always existed within them to begin to radiate in the simplest and most common hours of life. It appears in the kind word chosen during a conversation at the store, in the patience preserved before someone who tests your limits, in the hand extended to a stranger, in the sincere smile offered without expecting anything in return, in the welcoming silence that comforts one who suffers, and in thousands of acts of kindness that will never be recorded by history. No book will ever chronicle these moments. No monument will be built in their honor. Yet all of them, gathered together, form the very substance of the new world that is being born. It is precisely from this invisible matter that the new earth is being built. You are constructing this world at this very moment, without ceremonies, without public recognition, and without applause. Every small movement inspired by love places a new brick in that structure. Every decision to respond with warmth instead of coldness, with understanding instead of judgment, lays one more stone in the great house toward which all of humanity is silently walking, even if many do not yet perceive it. None of this is small or insignificant. Everything has value, because every choice made from consciousness strengthens the foundation of that future which has already begun to emerge. This is the hour for which you crossed all of creation, just to be present. Throughout countless journeys, lifetimes, and lessons, you have prepared for this moment. Nothing you lived through was in vain. Every challenge, every loss, every joy, and every breakthrough served to lead you exactly here. Now, the phase of release is behind you. Your inner space has been cleared, little by little, allowing old burdens to dissolve. The weights that once took up so much space no longer hold the same power. And where there was once only the weight of old sorrows, now, a gentle warmth is beginning to fill every empty space. That warmth does not come from outside. It has always been waiting to emerge. The sun remains exactly where it has always been. It never stopped shining. There were only times when clouds seemed to hide it from your eyes. In the same way, the whisper of fear, of doubt, and of separation grows weaker and weaker as fewer people turn their heads to listen to it. It loses its strength whenever someone chooses to listen to the quiet voice of their own soul instead of the constant noise of old beliefs. And then it becomes evident that the answer searched for throughout a lifetime, sought in so many places, in so many people, and in so many experiences, was never far away. It was always here. It always inhabited the most intimate space of your own being. It is closer to you than your own breath, more present than any thought, and simpler than the very name you carry. Nothing needs to be conquered to reach it. It is enough to turn toward it with sincerity. Turn your face toward that silent presence. Allow it to pass through your entire being. Do not resist the flow of that light. Become a place where the tide of consciousness can finally reach the shore and remain. Allow that presence to find in you a safe space to manifest in the world, through every gesture, every word, and every daily choice. Thus, the invisible becomes visible, and that which seemed distant reveals that it was always within reach of the heart. We love you, we love you, we love you. Our love remains constant through every forgetting and through every remembrance, through every existence in which you seem to have lost us, and through every life in which you found us again. We never stopped walking beside you, even when you could not perceive our presence. And now we are even closer, accompanying every step of this journey with infinite tenderness. We are not going anywhere. We will remain beside you as this new stage continues to flourish. I am Minayah, of the Pleiadian and Sirian Light Assembly.